One of the things I really like about social work is that it's so broad and that you can do so many different things with it. You can apply it to so many different fields. If people aren't really sure about whether or not it's a field for them, I think I would just say go for it. I think it's worth it and you get such a solid foundation to work with. I ended up being able to do my field practicum doing substance abuse prevention. So it was going in and taking kids that are considered at risk for whatever reason and giving them all these life skills to eventually basically say no when they're presented with an opportunity to do drugs, alcohol. I went into it with all these really adorable elementary school age kids, and some of them were middle school age kids, and you don't want kids to not like you, but sometimes you have to be stern. We were trying to teach them something valuable. They don't always want to sit there and listen, but there's a reason for them being there. And so it was hard for me to kind of learn that your clients aren't always going to be your number one fan, and that's okay because that's not what you're there for. If you treat kids with respect, then they'll treat you with respect back. Kids understand hard topics, and a lot of those kids have gone through probably more than I have at a young age. You don't have to baby kids. They can handle it, and they can talk about drugs and alcohol, and they've probably dealt with it. It's kind of taking more of a community turn now to basically change the attitudes surrounding these things rather than just teach kids that it's bad and to say no. It's kind of what's worked for tobacco. We gave out information to tobacco retailers about the consequences of selling tobacco to minors and why they need a card. We've seen how people feel about tobacco, negative thoughts about it, whereas 30 years ago that wasn't the case. You can keep doing this about all sorts of things, like you can do it about drugs, you can do it about alcohol and things like that. If you actually get community attitudes and ideas about a problem to change, then it's much better than if you can just get a couple people to change their attitudes about it. I was in the prevention department of a community services board. They also did obesity prevention, suicide prevention, widespread education, lock boxes for guns, and they did drug take-back days to keep prescription drugs out of houses. They did surveys to see where the problem areas were, and I really like that kind of stuff. I would kind of eventually like to go back to doing prevention because I think it's really important in a lot of fields, because if you don't have that, then you're kind of just taking things case by case. During my field practicum, I got to present at a conference, and it was on teenage depression and girls from like 14 to 18. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but then having to go out there and actually having the girls react really positively to me and want to talk to me, it was kind of enlightening in that sense of I can actually do this, and realizing that it's okay to have confidence in yourself. Girls are a lot more likely to become depressed than boys, and it's because of the way that we deal with things, basically, because we like to sit and think about our problems, whereas boys are more likely to use distractive coping mechanisms, and lots of girls will go and run and do things like that too, but we're more likely to just sit and think and worry about things. Teenagers do deal with things a lot differently than adults deal with things. Not that adults haven't things all figured out by any means, but most adults have an idea of what helps them and what works for them, whereas teenagers are usually still figuring that out. They're still growing and still learning so much. Part of it is understanding about what they're going through and helping them cope and finding ways that work for them. You hear all these things about what helps with depression, so like yoga or exercising, but if you try that and that doesn't work for you, then don't keep doing that. There's writing, there's music, there's all sorts of things that help certain people, and sometimes it's very necessary to go to the doctor and be prescribed medicine, and I think there's a stigma around that, but really a huge percentage of teenagers are on antidepressant medication. It'd be great if people realize that it's okay to seek help, and it's okay to talk to your parents about it, and okay to talk to your friends about it. If nothing else, I think it opened the dialogue so that maybe after that they felt like they could talk to each other about it. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, depression affects so many people, and so it's okay to be sad sometimes, and it's okay to feel like that, but there's a lot that can be done about it too. I would probably tell other students that are working towards their BSW to keep learning as much as they possibly can. Definitely talk to your professors and get close to your professors because they're your biggest support system when you're going through your field practicum and then even afterwards. I was having a lot of trouble making connections between the stuff that we had learned in the classroom and what I was actually doing. My one professor, the one that nominated me for this, she sat down with me and talked me through it and made me realize that I do know what I'm doing. And, she was just really encouraging. It was really helpful to have that relationship. I wouldn't have this opportunity right now if it hadn't been for her. I went in as a social work major, graduated as a social work major. It's pretty much always been what I wanted to do. My mom worked at a food bank since I was like a little kid. Just growing up watching her do that and seeing like the influence that she's had in our home community, it was really inspirational and it really made me want to do something like that with my life. Social work's definitely created opportunities for me, and when I think about what I do in social work, it's helping people create opportunities for themselves. I'm all for just going and learning as much as possible and doing as much as possible and just be open. I don't really think that you can mess up. I think just if you want to help people, then you should do it and you'll find a way to do it.